Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we're reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, entitled The Status Quo. I believe chapter 3, but I don't know which text.
Text 21.
Text 21. Okay, so canto 3, chapter 3, text 21. Imam lokam amum cha eva ramayan sutaram yadun reme kshanadaya data kshana stri kshana Sorida Imam lokam amum chaiva Ramayan sutaram yadun Remekshana dayadata Kshana stri kshana sorida Imam lokam amum chaiva Ramayan sutaram yadun Remekshana dayadata Kshana stri kshana sorida Imam lokam amum chaiva Ramayan sutaram yadun Remekshana dayadata Kshana stri kshana sorida
Imam lokam amum chaiva
Imam lokam amum chaiva
Ramayan sutaram yadun
Ramayan sutaram yadun
Remekshana dayadata
Remekshana dayadata
Kshana stri kshana solidaha
Kshana stri kshana sorida. Would anyone online like to recite the verse? Okay. Imam, this. Lokam, earth. Amum, and the other worlds. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Ramayan, pleasing. Sutaram, specifically. Yadun, the Yadus. Reme, enjoyed. Kshanadaya, by night. Data, given by. Kshana, leisure. Stri, with women. Kshana, conjugal love. Sorida, friendship. Translation. The Lord enjoyed his pastimes both in this world and in other worlds, higher planets, specifically in the association of the Yadu dynasty. At leisure hours offered by night, he enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with women. Purport. The Lord enjoyed in this world with his pure devotees. Although he is the personality of Godhead and is transcendental to all material attachment, he nevertheless exhibited much attachment for his pure devotees on the earth, as well as for the demigods who engage in his service in the heavenly planets, as powerful delegated directors in the management of all material activities. He displayed special attachment for his family members, thank you, the Yadus, as well as for his 16,000 wives who had the opportunity to meet him in the leisure hours of night. All these attachments of the Lord are manifestations of his internal potency, of which the external potency is only a shadow representation. In the Skanda Purana, Prabhasa Kanda, in the topics between Lord Shiva and Gauri, there is confirmation of his internal potential manifestations. There is mention of the Lord's meeting with 16,000 cowherd damsels. Although he is the Hamsa, transcendental super soul, and maintainer of all living entities. The 16,000 cowherd damsels are a display of 16 varieties of internal potencies. This will be more elaborately explained in the 10th canto. It is said there that Lord Krishna is just like the moon, and the internal potential damsels are like the stars around the moon. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Andeham Shri Guru Shri Uttaparakamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Hare Krishna Padansa Hagana Raghunath Avita Shukam Tam Shah Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Rinjit Davani Ishwari Risha Banusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Mate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Vishesha Shunyavadi Pashtate Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna. So the verse reads again, I'll read it again. And George is arriving, so I'll wait to see who's here. And so I'm repeating the verse. The Lord enjoyed his pastimes both in this world and in other in other worlds, higher planets, specifically in the association of the Yadu dynasty. At leisure hours offered by night, he enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with women. Hare Krishna. So I didn't read this before reading it to you all, and not really an expert on the Srimad Bhagavatam at all, or these types of topics either. But I'll share something. So where Srila Prabhupada went in the purport is making distinctions between the internal potency of Krishna and the external potency of Krishna. And I guess Krishna especially loves to enjoy his internal potency, which is actually the devotees, if I'm understanding that correctly. So he likes to enjoy in this world and in other worlds with his pure devotees. And he came to earth and he had his pastimes here, and in those pastimes there's a period of time where Lord Krishna had 16,000 wives, and I like Srila Prabhupada refers to them as cowherd damsels. And in this last sentence was really beautiful. It is said that Lord Krishna is just like the moon, and the internal potential damsels are like the stars around the moon. So I feel like a sweetness and an innocence that Krishna, you know, one of Krishna's favorite pastimes is being surrounded by cowherd damsels, and that everyone's shining in that sweet. It's a sweet atmosphere of Krishna being surrounded by his devotees. So I don't think I'll have like a lot more that I can say on that exact topic, but I can maybe speak philosophically.
Go ahead when you want to. Go ahead when you want.
I can go wherever I want to. I'm just really touched by, I'll just share personally. I find it like beautiful and touching that Krishna, that the source of everything is or chooses personality, personhood, pastimes, relationships. It's just very like, that's the only way that we can experience love, is having people, having two entities, sharing and caring with each other. And I just think that's like instinctually just very satisfying and beautiful. And you can even see it in the animal world, that there's caregiving and care for each other. And so for sure it's in humans, and it's more, or in the soul really, and in the human species, it's more complex and dynamic, the exchange of love between each other. That's one thing I have more experience of in this lifetime, is just what is it like relating to and exchanging love and relationships with other humans and with animals. And then only in the last few years I contemplated exchange of closeness or love with God. And that's still an experiment, and something I'm forgetting that I'm even doing and trying to do. And as I was driving here a few days ago, like I woke up and I thought, devotion. Like, why am I waking up early? And I thought, like, sometimes it's like, because I said I would, because I should, because I have these rounds to chant. Like, why am I waking up early? And like, the thought of devotion came to mind because the alarm went off. I didn't like go to sleep early enough, and I was tired. But then I thought of this, at least the concept of devotion. It wasn't an emotion of devotion, but it was at least a more touching reason, like logically, to get up and do my services. And then I was thinking on the drive here about devotion. Like, am I consciously cultivating devotion? I mean, like, as just not because I'm practicing and because I'm associating and doing all the things that Prabhupada said. Yes, maybe I'm doing those things, but am I allowing myself to cultivate devotion or like love for Krishna? And I'm not really consciously cultivating love for Krishna. And there's times where I felt it, like descriptions that I've read of Krishna were like so beautiful and so touching, and just the overall feeling I have in association with Srila Prabhupada and his devotees and the practice, like I love the life that I'm living with Krishna consciousness. But then just on a personal level, like, how am I feeling in my relationship with Krishna? And I thought I could even consciously practice an emotion of devotion, like get into it, like, you know what I mean? Like let myself have, just that, like, see if that feeling's there or awaken it. And it could be awakened just through reading and chanting. But it was just like, maybe like on a prayer level, and like on a personal level, just me and Krishna, like what's that relationship like, and do I feel devotion, and could I feel devotion, and would I, I guess I think it's a part of the soul is to love God. So it's there inside of me, and am I allowing myself to feel it and experiment with love of God? Like, in a feeling level, not just through practice. Anyway, it was something that I was contemplating driving here. And so and other areas that I've been thinking about with Krishna consciousness is like exchange with Krishna, like giving and receiving, and like that I think it's pleasing to Krishna. I don't really have I'm not going to be able to refer to any verses or anything today, but I'll just share some thoughts about relationship with Krishna, and then we can all discuss. So I was thinking recently too, like about having a win-win with Krishna, and him wanting our happiness just as much as we want his happiness. And actually, it's, of course, that the way I said that's not really matching the state that we're in, like the status of being conditioned souls. Like, we're not really conditioned to be wanting Krishna's enjoyment. It's the opposite. We're really focused on ourselves, and in this process of chanting Hare Krishna and Bhakti Yoga, we're like awakening that part of ourselves, our desire to serve Krishna, to please Krishna, wondering what would Krishna like, and what would be pleasing to his representative, our spiritual master. These are things that we're practicing. And sometimes for me, like sometimes I feel like so much should energy, to be honest. And like, I should be thinking of Krishna. What does Krishna want me to do? Like, always like thinking that there's something I should be doing, something else. And I sort of come to the end of the road with like feeling bad about myself and wondering what I'm supposed to be doing, and seeing how I'm falling short of that. And I started to think, like, what would Krishna might want, what I want, what do I want? Like, what's like awakening natural inspiration in my heart, not so much like just trying to find out what Krishna wants me to do in every area of my life, and feeling like either I'm falling short or I don't have the answers. Like, okay, what does my inspiration say from, a simple, like, like my true spirit, like, what is my spirit saying or wanting to do in service to Krishna? And so, yeah, I've been thinking about like win-win, like Krishna would want a genuine joy for his devotee as much as he's receiving. So it's not really about like, we have to, erase ourselves and not even pay attention to our desire. Like, it's really about awakening the soul. The soul's natural desire is there, dying to be expressed, really, to be honest. And Krishna wants that our aliveness, our genuine inspiration, love, and joy to be expressed, and for it to be Krishna conscious and like aligned with Krishna's desires. So I think it's really mutual. The relationship with Krishna is meant and designed to be mutual. And from our place of conditioning, where we're like not really giving back to that relationship, there's like a reform process, or and maybe the reform process is not so comfortable, and it entails some sacrifice. It appears we're sacrificing what we used to enjoy and the way we used to spend time with these other like Krishna conscious activities to kind of wake up the soul. But the idea is really to purify our consciousness so that blissful nature can actually be expressed, spontaneously, So in my home, I'm raising two kids, they're 10 and 12, and my 12-year-old's just going through a developmental change, like and it's really natural, and it's like transforming me, because whereas I could just like give him a reason he should do something a certain way. This is what's coming to mind. So like, I don't like my oldest son who's 12, my youngest is 10. He's still kind of, well, he's just never been that agreeable, to be honest. But my oldest is like usually cooperative and sees reasons. He's responsible, and he'll like just usually cooperate. Like all these years, he's pretty cooperative, and in doing what makes sense and what's needed kind of around him. He overall cooperates. I mean, definitely not all the time, but and lately he's just like, he's wanting more freedom. He's wanting more autonomy, and it's natural. And this time has to come where we renegotiate everything that, like, we have values and kind of rules and with screens or, our bedtime or whatever, but like he wants to question a lot of things right now. And it's not going to work to just tell him the reason that I want him to do whatever. Like it has to be negotiated right now. And it's a good thing. Anyway, it made me think like of win-win. Like he needs to not just be powered. My son needs to not be powered over. And my husband and I are doing like some research on this. I thought of this man that I heard of, a parenting expert. I'll just go ahead and share. So this man did research. He's an academic, and he was really wrote a lot of books, and kind of a scholar, and did research on bribes, rewards, punishments, threats, consequences. Like the whole thing where it's like conditional love. It's not just love, like it's conditioned. Like if you do this, you'll either get a reward or punishment. And that paradigm works with temporary obedience. Like you'll get what you want as a parent when we give rewards and punishments. And I mean, it's not so much that I love rewards and punishments. I personally don't really value them as like a way of interacting with people. And I believe children are equal to but they do need boundaries and protection. Anyway, it's just interesting, like it's like a consciousness, like how do we approach children? And but yeah, in the end though, I did rewards and punishments and threats and bribes. Not like the whole thing, like not like all our interaction was about like my power, my control over my kids, but it's just Gaetano and I, Garuda and I, we resorted to that or used some of that. And but I just feel like it's run its course, and like we need a new paradigm in the house where like there's voices being heard and we're listening and we're having discussions about everything, chores. I don't really want to threaten my kids. Anyway, I'm going to share one more thing about my parenting experience, because that's been a big focus. And I don't really know where that went, where I was going with that, but except yeah, like win-win, mutual. I don't know how this relates to Krishna consciousness. I'm just going to share one more thing, and I think this will I think this has some value. Yesterday I was driving in my car. I was talking to my children, and Leota's like he's getting his voice heard, and so he has more to say. So I'm hearing more because there's more safe space for him to not that I didn't shut him down, but he just has a lot going on right now. So, and he's like, every kid in the modern world has video games, and it's like you and dad, and he started to have tears in his eyes. He's like, you and dad you don't want us to make any mistakes. And he's like, mistakes are good. And he like was like not crying really hard, but it was emotional for him. And I was like, I hear you. Like, I'm not just gonna say, oh no, we don't do video games, because it's like I have to have a discussion. It's interesting. So I mean, that was impactful for me. Like, we need to give space. And I think that's what, okay, let me bring this back to Krishna consciousness. So Krishna gives us free will, and he gives us space to have our experiments. That's what's happening here. We're spirit souls in the material world. We're not in our eternal form and eternal location, our eternal occupation here, where, the soul belongs in total devotion and bliss in serving Krishna, serving the absolute truth 100% all day and night. And that's where we came from, and that's where we will be returning to. But for now, we're in this like conditional relative state and consciousness of like, and we've forgotten our true nature, and we've forgotten our love of Krishna. But we have the free will to stay here as long as we want and keep experimenting and see how it goes. You can eat ice cream all day. You could do video games all day. Any one of us could just experiment with, self-indulgence and see how long it lasts and see how it feels. And that's okay. I want to say that, like, it is okay to have our experiment. That's my lesson from my son, that it's okay. And he said they're good. My son said mistakes are good. And in some ways they are, because you can have a learning lesson from them. And we don't really need to label mistakes as good or bad anyway, because I don't believe they are. Like, they're just, like there's right and wrong in the sense of like respect towards others and self. But anyway, I don't really want to talk about that labeling. But here we are. We're in this like material conditioned state, and we're actually, blissful servants of God and of the divine. Let's see what the purport says, if there's anything here that I would love to share. I'm not going to be able to speak on much of this. Okay, I'm going to read this one sentence and see, because I was interested. Okay, there is mention of the Lord's meeting with 16,000 cowherd damsels, although he is the Hamsa, transcendental super soul and maintainer of all living entities. So I was curious about that. So he is the Hamsa super soul. So he's the maintainer of all living entities, and he's the super soul is in every living entity in the material world, right? Yeah. Okay, so he's like, I think this is saying that he can be many places at once. Krishna has amazing abilities. And the 16,000 cowherd damsels are a display of 16 varieties of internal potencies. I don't know. Do you know varieties of potencies?
Well, it's internal potencies that in Shakti. So all its part and parcel are coming from his pleasure potency. So they are all manifestation of his pleasure potency, but they are all different potential to give him pleasure. That's how I will understand.
Okay, I don't know if you heard what she said, what the Malini said, but there's different varieties of internal potencies which give different types of pleasure to Krishna. So yeah, we can return to our little, be a little star surrounding the moon, giving pleasure to Krishna, also receiving pleasure. It's actually blissful and pleasurable to serve the absolute truth, to serve the divine, to serve God, and to serve the divine in each entity we interact with. So it's a win-win, and we should do it. And that's the conclusion of I think I'll stop there, because I don't really know where to go. If there's any questions or comments, I would love to hear. And I'll repeat the verse again before that. The Lord enjoyed his pastimes, both in this world and in other worlds, higher planets, specifically in the association of the Yadu dynasty. At leisure hours offered by night, he enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with women. Hare Krishna. Thanks for listening, and I would be happy to hear if anyone has any comments or questions, or if you want to add to anything I shared. Yes, Kim.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Like you, I can't speak much about that verse, but some of the things you said made me think about things. And sorry, I always go back to Bible references, but it's just, I was raised like that, so I think that way. But the one thing I was thinking about what you said is, sometimes it is hard to feel like you love God, but, our relationships are with people so much. And we feel it for moments, and we definitely feel it if we fill our minds with stories of Krishna. It all helps us to love Krishna. But I know in my everyday, loving people or having a relationship with people is just, more what I can relate to. And so I always go back to the Bible where Jesus said, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. And the disciples said, well, when did we feed you when you're hungry or give you water? And he said, when you've done that for the least of these, you've done it for me. So I always try to think that way, that at least that I can try to do to feel my love for God or in some way translate that, So that's one thing I thought of when you were speaking earlier. And I guess that's the main thing. I guess I also had a question because you said, about making God happy. And, I've always wondered about that. Like, it seems like that we should be able to make God happy by the things we do. But I often wonder, it doesn't. I just wonder sometimes if we can make him sad. Like, are there verses where we make him sad? Like, I feel like we shouldn't be able to make God sad, really. But in the Bibles, there's verses that say you can make God sad. But I don't know. I feel like we could make him happy, but I'm hoping we can't make him sad. Like he's above that somehow because he sees the whole picture. Anyway, that's something I wondered about. But those are the two thoughts that came to mind during your talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing, Kim. I really liked what you shared about you have fed me when you fed the least of these of me. I don't know. So yeah, first I'll respond to the first point quickly, that when we show compassion to those who are suffering, that does serve God, and that's pleasing to God, and that's in the Bible. And I think that's consistent with Krishna consciousness, that we're, especially when we're serving the soul, that's what Krishna and Srila Prabhupada are especially after, is like the transformation of the soul and bringing God consciousness and bringing spiritual energy to the suffering souls here. So that's like, actually, I think that's like the most pleasing thing that is actually, it's in the Bhagavad Gita about like those who the very, very dear to me. There's a verse about very, very dear to me when we're serving others in Krishna, and I don't know what it is. Do you know what I'm talking about? Another model?
Yeah, but like the very, very dear it's different, but at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, I think it's 1868 or 69, it said that there is no more dear to me than this devotee who were preaching, giving Krishna consciousness to others. Is the most dear to me.
Yes, so at the end of Bhagavad Gita, 1868, somewhere close to there, Krishna says, "There's no one more dear to me than the devotee who's giving." I'm paraphrasing, but who's giving Krishna consciousness, who's preaching. So, yeah, I think that is consistent with the Bible. And then the next thing you shared was if we can make Krishna sad. And my understanding is, in a sense, yes. when we alienate ourselves from him or are harming others, especially, spiritually, but in any way at all, yeah, it's not pleasing. And I think Krishna, he contains multitudes. And so, thank you. There's a verse that, so simultaneous, like while Krishna has like his ecstasy and his bliss, and he has knowledge of past, present, future, and he can see the soul perfectly, even though he has all of that knowledge, still it brings pain to Krishna when we are alienating ourselves from him. So I believe it is possible to make God sad. You can make him laugh and cry. And he's a full person. So that's my response.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense the way you put it. Thank you so much.
There's no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. And that is referring to the verse prior. For one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me. So we need to share the supreme secret, and then we can make Krishna happy.
Nice, thank you.
Srila Prabhupada said we can torture the super soul by our activities. So that's pretty intense. Torture the super soul. Like make Krishna be really pain.
Yeah.
Like a parents, is not pleased with everything the children. The parents always love, never stop loving. At the same time, they are not pleased by everything the children do.
Mm-hmm.
There is no other comment. I have some comments on your class. I was thinking like, okay, let's say we are all 12-year-old boys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, well, Krishna created a system where the 12-year-old boys that we are is free will to choose. And then within that frame of choosing, there is only reward and consequences. Only. So if someone says, well, that shouldn't exist, like what's there is there in the world, as long as we are material consciousness, that's all there is, reward and consequences. So in a sense, we can look at Sri Krishna as the perfect parents and understanding. So there's no attachment to control us. Krishna doesn't try to control us at all. Like, not at all. He gives us free will, and it's very serious. Yeah, there's no moment where we feel controlled by Krishna. And at the same time, in that free will, there is reward and consequences. Yeah. And I remember at one point when I was working at the ashram, we were listening from someone who was from Princeton University. And that person was presenting different paradigm of taking care of teenager, because it was a teenage ashram. And the paradigm that was closest to God's paradigm was the paradigm that for of the balance between privilege and responsibility. Because often teenagers, they want privilege and no responsibility. Like, oh, no responsibility. Well, there is no privilege without responsibilities. And then naturally, when there is responsibilities, and there is privilege. And that's a paradigm that's very close to Krishna's paradigm. He loves everyone, and he liked to spend time with the Yadu dynasty, and he liked to spend time with the damsel of Raj, because those they are really taking a lot of responsibility to serve and love Krishna. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel a little in the dark again. I've worked with children for like over 20 years, I spent time with children, but not not older than 12. So it's like, oh, now I'm in the dark, and I have values and I have concepts, but how do I put it all together? Yeah, and I thank you for sharing that about like there are rewards and punishments in reality.
Consequences.
There's consequences in reality. Yeah.
There is nothing else.
Yeah.
In the material reality, there is nothing else. So for
Law of
someone to
karma.
write books about like, you should, it's just a command. And it's about being expert in like allowing Krishna to, bestow. And of course, Krishna is not controlling.
Mhm.
So there is no controlling energy in his parenting. Just, okay, here I will give you free will. And there is reward and consequences. And there is a system of responsibility and privilege.
Mhm.
And that's
It's
it.
the law of
I'm
karma.
detached.
Yeah, it's a law of karma,
And I'm detached.
and it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have.
It is
Consequences.
It is the reality that we have.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
And helping me with parenting.
It's like looking at what Krishna is doing with his teenagers.
Yeah.
We are all rebellious teenagers. That's the soul in conditioned state. All the soul in conditioned state who choose to separate themselves from Krishna because they think I can do better. I know better. I can have my own project. I can have my own enjoyment. I don't need to have the enjoyment of Krishna, which is a very, very small percentage of souls, like very, very small. That's to keep that in mind. It's like Prabhupada says, 10%. It's just a very small percentage of souls that choose that. And then, for those souls, they are rebellious teenagers. I know better, and I know better how to enjoy, and I know how to control, and I want to be the supreme controller. And then Krishna said, okay, I'm fine with that. Go. Show me. He doesn't try to control or change our mind. He tried to inspire us. But there is not even convincing. Like I read something very recently, I think in the 6th canto, about convincing. There's a difference between convincing and inspiring. And we are not here to convince anyone. Christ didn't try to convince anyone, but it was an inspiration and continued to be an inspiration.
Thank you.
The expert, parent, like teacher.
Yeah. Thank you. That helps me personally. Would anyone else like to share any thoughts or comments? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Lord Shri Krishna ki jai.
Jai.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you
No more
for the class. Thanks for joining.
questions about